Hello and welcome to Toons. I'm Luke. Today we're going to be looking at how Warner Bros. Animation adapted Batman Under the Hood into an animated film. In 2005, writer Judd Winick wrote Under the Red Hood, which would see Batman exploring a mysterious new criminal in Gotham by the name of Red Hood. An exciting story at the time, which was revealed to have many ties to stories of Batman's past. Being that the comic was an ongoing story set across multiple arcs and multiple issues, the story is quite long, but bear with me. Batman fights the Red Hood. Flashback to 5 weeks earlier. Wayne finds out that the Cord Corporation, Wayne Industries R&D division, has been bought. The Red Hood meets with the gang leaders. Black Mask is told of the Red Hood. Black Mask recruits Mr. Freeze. Batman and Nightwing fight criminals at the docks. They chase the Red Hood. A Mazo appears. They battle. Red Hood tells Black Mask that he has stolen his shipment of kryptonite. Mr. Freeze goes to purchase the kryptonite. Batman and Nightwing show up to throw some punches. The Red Hood is seen beating the Joker with a crowbar in a manner very reminiscent to the way the Joker once beat the second Robin, Jason Todd, 17 years prior. And with that it is revealed that the Red Hood is Jason Todd, back from the dead. The Red Hood continues to antagonise the Black Mask. Batman visits the Tanner, Etrigan, Green Arrow and Superman. The vigilante Onyx investigates the Red Hood. Onyx teams up with the Red Hood. And then Red Hood stabs Onyx. A Death in the Family flashbacks to when Jason dies. Batman fights Red Hood and we are back where we started. Red Hood takes off his helmet revealing that he is Jason. Batman DNA checks that it's Jason. Bruce decides to leave Jason's costume up. This doesn't change a thing. Batman digs up Jason's coffin. Some Jason flashback. Batman takes down a drug ring. Jason blows it up. Jason montage. Jason blows up Black Mask's office. Black Mask meets with Deathstroke. Black Mask recruits a secret society of supervillains to take down the Red Hood. Jason takes down Black Mask's goons after they go after some of his dealers. The secret society of supervillains attack the Red Hood, and the Red Hood teams up with Batman. Black Mask kills his second in command. He's revealed to be working alongside the Red Hood. Alfred receives a package from Jason, revealing that he has the Joker. Red Hood fights with Black Mask. Black Mask kills the Red Hood, although it turns out this Red Hood is a hired gun with a speaker in his mask. Jason has the Joker, beats him some more. Batman confronts Jason. And then Bloodhaven, Gotham's sister city, is destroyed. Jason won't let Batman leave to check on Dick. They fight. Jason tries to make Batman kill the Joker with a gun. The building explodes and we see that Batman makes it out. Now, as widely well received as this comic book was, it was fairly controversial at the time. The means by which Jason was brought back to life was tied to a company-wide crossover that reset continuity, as well as the fact that the character was originally killed off after being voted on by fans. Some felt that bringing him back went against the spirit of the vote, even if that was 17 years ago. Despite all this, the story is very important to the larger Batman mythos, as it is responsible for bringing back Jason Todd, the Red Hood, a large player in the Batman comics today. Winick himself stated that he was more focused on the story between Batman, Bruce Wayne and Jason Todd than on the how and why of Jason's return. If you're enjoying this video, go ahead and give it a like. And if you want more like this, feel free to subscribe and hit the bell icon to be notified whenever new videos are ready. The popular DC Universe animated original movies line was being used to adapt popular comic book storylines into animation. Writer Judd Winick approached producers Alan Burnett and Bruce Timm with his story. And within a 45-minute pitch over the phone, they knew that this had to be told on screen. Winick was able to address all the issues that Bruce Timm saw with the story, such as the length,
you know, the death in the family thing,
as well as the context of how exactly Jason would return. The comic storyline follows on directly from the events of War Games, a previous Bat Family crossover event, as well as directly preceding the company-wide crossover event, Infinite Crisis, and as such has ties to both storylines within its tale. The War Games storyline set up Black Mask as the crime overlord of Gotham City, as well as explaining away the absence of characters like Robin and Batgirl being in Gotham City. When adapting to film, however, the status quo at the beginning of the story is to be considered the norm by the audience. As such, any context needed to understand the story would have to be explained within the film itself. When it came to Batman comics in the early noughties, writers would expect readers to know a basic few things. Bruce Wayne is Batman, Dick Grayson is the first Robin, and is now Nightwing. Jason Todd, the second Robin, was killed by the Joker back in 1989. The third Robin is Tim Drake. And the fourth Robin, Stephanie Brown, was recently killed in War Games by the Black Mask. These were just basic things about the Batman mythos that writers expected the audience to know. even if they took place 17 years ago. All of this is due to the way comics are structured, being that they are ongoing stories. A film, however, is a medium that relies on a much more tighter, self-contained story. The film, for instance, will reach a much larger audience, unfamiliar with the source material, and as such, to fill the viewers in on what is necessary to understand the story, the film would also have to adapt a death in the family. Despite what some people may think, the name Robin is synonymous with that of Batman, having debuted in 1940, only a year after his mentor's debut in 1939. So, when the original Robin, Dick Grayson, grew up and became the superhero Nightwing, DC replaced him with a new Robin, Jason Todd. Unlike Dick, an optimistic acrobat who grew up in the circus, Jason was a streaker with attitude. When asked about the fan reaction towards Jason Todd, then Batman editor Dennis O'Neil said simply, "They did hate him." This shows that fan didn't like changes to what had been the norm for over 40 years. Jason was just the complete opposite to Dick. How could this kid really be a suitable replacement? Eventually, O'Neil decided that he should let fans decide whether or not Jason should live or die by way of a vote. An idea that Jim Starlin, Batman writer of the time, would jump on, having wanted to kill the character for years, finding the notion of a teenage sidekick simply ridiculous. The four-part storyline of Death in the Family focuses on Jason's search for his mother and his eventual kidnapping. The second issue ended with the now iconic scene of the Joker savagely beating Jason to the brink of death with a crowbar, and then only to leave him in an exploding building. The next page asked fans whether or not the character should die. Call this number to vote for him to live, call this number to vote for him to die. With a difference of 72, Jason Todd was pronounced dead by fans, making Batman's own fans responsible for the character's greatest ever failure. Of course, at the time, this was considered controversial, being as it was seen as a publicity stunt centred around the killing of a child. Additionally, many news outlets at the time were reporting that the death of Robin was simply Dick Grayson, the character many people had grown up with at the time, when this was just simply not the case. The Under the Hood storyline was incredibly long, far too long to be adapted panel for panel into a movie. To adapt this storyline into the film, the filmmakers chose to only focus on the parts of the story relevant to the Under the Red Hood storyline, removing anything outside of Jason's death, and even removing Jason's mother from the death scenes, being that her presence would not be explained. A downside to doing this, however, is due to showing the death of Jason at the start of the film, much of the mystery surrounding who the identity of the Red Hood is disappears, simply instead replaced by suspense as to when Batman would find out that his lost son had returned. A benefit, however, is that the film does not need to wait for Jason to reveal himself to Batman to explore the relationship, as it can start to do that earlier. Now, the original comic book story arc was actually 3 separate storylines that were actually in 2 halves, spanning over a year, with a few stories in between. Of course, when adapted into a film, the 3 storylines had to become 1. This led to the film skipping over the gap between the stories and just having one narrative throughout, from start to finish. This also allowed the film to skip over anything that was repeated in the original storyline, such as the re-establishing of the Red Hood going after the Black Mask territory. This fact, however, is what led to the disappearance of Nightwing roughly halfway through the film. Nightwing was only actually in the first of the 3 arcs. This was due to him being tied up with the events leading to Infinite Crisis, dealing with the destruction of his home city Bloodhaven, which is seen in the penultimate issue of the arc. However, with the film being 1 arc, and without wanting to force Dick into the second half of the storyline, a need arose to explain away Dick's presence in the second half of the film. Obviously, the filmmakers didn't want to lead to anything to do with Infinite Crisis, as it wasn't the focus of the film. So, during the first fight between Batman and the Red Hood, Nightwing receives a leg injury, effectively benching him for the rest of the film. To make up for this, however, the film does include Nightwing in the closing montage of the film, showing that he's back in action, expanding his presence in the overall film. Additionally, Nightwing's opening scene features a criminal explaining to another that he was the original Robin, both to his partner and to the audience, to make sure they know Nightwing's place within the story. Although Winick has said the particulars of the resurrection is not what he was interested in, the means by which Jason was brought back to life would be an integral change to the film. Rather than being explained in the original comic itself, Todd's resurrection is actually explained in an epilogue featured in the Batman Annual. Here it is explained that due to Superboy Prime punching the barriers between realities, ripples are sent through time, which leads to Jason coming back to life 6 months after his death. This, of course, being the main tie-in to the Infinite Crisis event, being that Superboy Prime was initially seen doing this in another tie-in. After Jason digs his way out of a coffin, He goes into a coma for a year as a John Doe patient. Upon awakening, he escapes and lives on the streets for a year, with no memories before being found by Talia al Ghul. After caring for Jason for yet another year, she decides to throw him in the rejuvenating Lazarus Pit of her father's to restore the boy's mind and memory. And we then see the events of Batman Hush play out, with Jason fighting Batman, slipping away at the last minute and letting Clayface pretend to have been him the whole time. The movie takes the much simpler route. Rather than having Superboy Prime being the reason that Jason is brought back to life, it is simply the Lazarus Pit itself, avoiding any ties to Infinite Crisis. Additionally, rather than having Talia be the one responsible for throwing Jason in the Lazarus Pit, that role is given to her father and she is reduced to simply a cameo in the Lazarus Pit sequence. This is most likely due to the fact that audiences would be unfamiliar with the character, and so her presence would need to be explained, whereas the character Ra's al Ghul had recently appeared in Batman Begins, and so it could be expected that people would know who he is, as well as Ra's al Ghul being easier to explain on his own as opposed to Talia, who is connected to him. Again, this helps to streamline the story, as it reduces the number of characters the film has to deal with, as well as avoiding having to introduce the audience to characters that they may not know. This is an integral change to the film, as Batman is seen to go straight to Ra's when he's searching for answers to Jason's return, who then recounts the story in flashback. This is far more straightforward than in the comics, where Batman travels the country, visiting resurrected heroes searching for answers. To help further simplify this, the reason that Batman does go to Ra's is due to his ties to Jason's death. It is he who the dynamic duo were after when the Joker kidnapped Todd, rather than Todd looking for his mother. That information, combined with the fact that he knows of the Lazarus Pits, is what leads Batman to realising that Ra's may be the one responsible for Todd's return. The film moves many events in the comics around, as it is now one whole story. For instance, in the comics, Black Mask hires Mr. Freeze as a distraction for the Red Hood near the start of the story. In the film, however, Black Mask is the one responsible for both breaking out the Joker and hiring him, again as a distraction for the Red Hood. This also helps to explain just exactly how the Joker ended up in Todd's possession. As from here, the Joker is kidnapped by Todd and is beaten with a crowbar, reversing the situation from years earlier in what is a direct adaptation of putting the Joker in place for the final confrontation between Batman and the Red Hood. The source material, however, shows Todd having the Joker tied up throughout most of the storyline, with the crowbar scene taking place much earlier, and instead at around this point we see Jason beat him for a second time. Of course, with the film taking place over one arc instead of three, two beatings would be redundant and they were merged into one, having the more iconic crowbar scene being the one they went for. Rather than having Black Mask hire the Secret Society of Supervillains as the team to take down Jason, an original creation of the film, the Fearsome Hand of Four are sent to go after him instead. This helps keep the running time down, as they are simply assassins, rather than have them being established supervillains that are unknown to the audience that the film may have to waste time trying to explain. At this point, Deathstroke hadn't made any appearances outside of Slade in Teen Titans. The team's inclusion in the original was also a further tie-in to Infinite Crisis, being that the Secret Society of Supervillains was an ongoing story thread in that event. The film comes to a dramatic conclusion with a scene featuring Batman, the Red Hood and the Joker, which is in part adapted word for word from the comics. In the scene, Jason asks Bruce why the Joker is still alive after he took Jason away from him. This is a rather important theme the story explores, as the Joker has been responsible for many deaths throughout the years ever since his debut in the 1940s, across ranges of media. Had the Joker been killed many years ago, these deaths could have been prevented. Batman's response in the story is,
"If I allow myself to go down into that place, I'll never come back."
even though Jason argues that he didn't have to kill any other villains, just the one that killed his son. Batman's argument here is that after allowing himself to kill the Joker, he doesn't feel like he would be able to stop killing criminals, as he is already in a dark place and cannot afford to get any darker. Not long before killing Todd, the Joker had been responsible for paralysing former Batgirl Barbara Gordon. So after these attacks on both of his allies, Batman did seem to go after the Joker with an intent to kill, failing only because someone seemingly got there first, allowing the Joker to escape death and Batman's clutches once again. It is interesting to know that upon hearing that Tim Drake, the third Robin, is dead at hands of the Joker, Nightwing actually beats the Joker to death by hand and is happy that he's gone. Of course, the Joker is quickly resurrected by Batman, and Dick is left feeling guilty and questioning his role as a hero. All this can be found in the Joker's Last Laugh storyline from 2002. However, following these events, Dick does not start killing other villains and is able to simply stop at the Joker. So it could be argued that since Dick was trained by Bruce, his actions towards killing the Joker and stopping there could also be applied to Bruce. However, Dick is a much lighter character, and although he was pushed over the line, it would be easy for him to come back from that line and come to terms with what he did. Of course, there are more changes made, such as he becoming a she, most likely to add diversity to such a male-heavy cast, as well as the removal of any references to Batman fighting Jason during the Hush storyline, as this is more context that would need to be explained to the viewers unfamiliar with this story. The comic ends with the building the characters are in exploding, and it is left ambiguous as to who survives, as we only see Batman's silhouette in the water. All three characters, of course, survive and feature in later stories, however, it's not explained in the story itself. However, the film shows Batman finding the Joker in the rubble, with Jason having disappeared. Bruce then returns to the Batcave, where Alfred asks whether they should take down the memorial to Jason, to which Bruce responds,
This doesn't change anything. It doesn't change anything at all.
a scene which was used to close the second arc, or the first part of the storyline. Placing this at the end of the story and then following it with a scene of Jason trying on the Robin costume for the first time signifies that the emotional backbone of the film is the relationship between Bruce and Jason. The story of Under the Red Hood explores how the return of Jason affects Batman personally. The way in which the story is fit within the medium, however, can alter the interpretation and the meaning behind the story. The removal of scenes and characters allows for a tighter story focused on the relationship between Bruce and Jason, rather than just being a piece in a larger story, as most storylines in comics are, being of their ongoing series nature. Placing the death of Jason at the beginning of the story, however, takes away much of the mystery and leaves only suspense behind. Thanks for watching Tube of Toons. If you want more from the channel, hit subscribe. If you want to keep up to date with what's going on, follow us on our socials. Hope you liked it. Cheers.